The Subnautica 2 situation is not calming down. First, Krafton responds and accuses the fired Unknown Worlds leads of abandoning their responsibilities. Then, Charlie announces that they are suing Krafton, and then we get leaked documents for Subnautica's milestone review or roadmap showing the current state of early access. What a time to be excited for Subnautica 2, huh? Hey there, I'm Aki, and since my last video, a lot of stuff happened. First, Jason Schreier exposed that there was a $250 million deal for releasing Subnautica 2 this year, where people then obviously speculated that Krafton just didn't want to have to pay that. But then, Krafton released their own statement. Everything I talk about here will be linked in the description so you can read it in full, since I'll only be mentioning the important or interesting parts here. Right at the top of their statement, Krafton accuses Charlie, Ted, and Max of holding 90% of the $250 million for themselves. That's one way to begin a statement. They explain that approximately 90% of the $250 million payout would have been compensation to the three former executives, with the expectation that they would demonstrate leadership and active involvement. Krafton then claims that they abandoned their responsibilities and pushed back the early access launch, which was apparently initially planned for 2024. Now, personally, I don't mind a later launch, but Krafton also says that they made multiple requests to Charlie and Max to resume their roles as directors, but they both declined to do so. This doesn't sound right. Remember what I said about Charlie in my last video? How passionate and invested he is in the games he makes? I really doubt that he would just go, nah, I'm not gonna work on Subnautica 2. That makes no sense. Especially since, in 2022, when I talked to him at Gamescom, he was very much involved in Subnautica 2, even while working on Moonbreaker. It's especially weird since there's $250 million on the table. Even if they didn't care for Subnautica at all, surely that's some motivation, right? Now, Krafton claims that following the failure of Moonbreaker, Charlie focused on a personal film project instead of Subnautica 2. Now here's where it gets tricky. Charlie is actually working on a film project with his Abyssal Film studio, but I'm having a hard time believing that Charlie would just completely drop Subnautica 2 to make a Christmas comedy, especially since he's suing Krafton. But we'll get back to that in a second. They then say that they feel a sense of betrayal by the failure to honor the trust placed in them by the fans. Yeah, this just feels like Krafton trying to make them look like the bad guys. Kinda scummy. They then say that they commit to providing us with the best possible gaming experience, and then praise the other developers for their hard work and reaffirm the commitment to provide the rewards they were promised. Now the question remains, does that mean they will pay the $250 million? Or the 10% of the $250 million? I have a feeling I know which one. When this statement came out, I thought I'd wait a couple days before making a video on it, and good thing I did. Because Charlie released another letter on Twitter and Reddit. Here, he assures us that the game is ready for early access, before telling us that he and the other executives are suing Krafton. He doesn't go into details, probably because it's a lawsuit, but think about this. Would he sue Krafton if he was in the wrong? Would he have risked this if Subnautica wasn't ready for early access? And if he did abandon his responsibilities? Personally, I don't think so. He also confirms that he, Max, and Ted were never going to keep the money to themselves, instead planning to share the money with the developers like they've always done. And on this, I 100% believe him. Specifically about the money, I don't think either Krafton or Charlie are lying. Krafton was going to pay 90% to the executives, but they were going to share the money with the developers, like they always have. Keep in mind, these are not AAA executives. This is an indie studio where they're probably on a first-name basis with all the team members. Now, people have been calling for a boycott of Subnautica 2, or to pirate it instead. And I personally think that's going to hurt the developers more than Krafton. So please don't pirate Subnautica. You don't have to buy it, but at least don't hurt the devs by pirating the game. It is a shame we don't know what the lawsuit is about though, right? Well, Jason Schreier to the rescue. He published an update on Blue Sky saying that the lawsuit is for breach of contract. Now, I don't know much about lawsuits, so this is purely my personal speculation, but to me, that sounds like they're suing over being fired, which makes sense since Krafton did promise not to touch the existing studio hierarchy when they acquired Unknown Worlds. And then, just before going to bed, a friend sent me this. Subnautica 2 leaks, specifically their milestone review for May. Now, I don't know who Bad AI is or how they got these pictures, so they could definitely be fake, but they honestly look surprisingly authentic to me. Update: right when I'm editing this, Krafton has apparently confirmed that the leak is correct. So all of this is real info. As far as I can tell, these documents are from Krafton and claim the game's content volume has been scaled down for early access, which essentially means they cut some of the planned features and content. Now, this is normal in game development, and I'd say especially normal for early access games. But Krafton seems to think they need to reassess the feasibility of the planned launch. So, let's take a look at the changes of content they wanted in the early access launch from 2023 to 2025. For biomes in 2023, they were planning for coral gardens with 3 main points of interest: the void zone, the kelp forest, and web hives. I don't think I want to know what that is. In 2024, web hives has disappeared, coral gardens gained a point of interest, the void zone has been renamed to sparse plains, and the kelp forest now has 3 main points of interest. And then in 2025, the coral gardens now has 7 main points of interest, and the sparse plains are still there, but the kelp forest has been removed. Now, this looks like, oh god, 2 biomes are missing, oh no. But the 7 main points of interest compared to the 3 of coral gardens in 2023 tells me that they probably just decided to focus on existing biomes and flesh them out more, compared to adding more, less detailed biomes, which I think is perfectly valid. In 2023, there were 2 types of Leviathan planned. Now, I don't know what they mean with types of Leviathan, but it definitely sounds like not just 2 separate Leviathans, but probably something like the Reaper versus the Emperor, where one of them is more set dressing. Or maybe even the Reaper versus the Ghost Leviathan, where one has a grab and the other has something else going on. In 2024, it stayed the same, but then in 2025, it got scaled down to 1 type of Leviathan, plus 2 in the content or preview phase. Now, I don't know what that specifically means, but they definitely did get rid of 1 type of Leviathan for the start of early access. For creatures, we went from 20 to 20 to 12, which also is of course a significant cut down, but again, still way more than we had in Subnautica 1's early access. For the character selection, basically stayed the same, except that the light customization has been removed for the early access launch. The biomods have been completely changed from 2024 to 2025. Instead of 20 types of biomods, we now have 2 types of adaptations and 2 types of general modifications. Now, to me, this just sounds like they changed how biomods work. Instead of having 1 system with 20 different things, they have 2 different systems with different things inside them: adaptations and general modifications. But I do definitely think we have more than 4 biomods, since there are 2 types in 2 different categories each. And then we have an ecosystem restoration system that is still the same, has just been renamed to Blight. Now, I don't want to brag, but maybe I'm responsible for this? Probably not, but when I met Charlie at Gamescom 2022, I did suggest an ecosystem restoration mechanic, and he seemed to really like it. Now, the most likely answer is that they have been already working on that when I suggested it, but I still think it's kind of funny. Now, the tools and equipment we have access to have gone through a roller coaster of emotions. We had 10 to 20 types in 2023, 10 plus types in 2024, and then 14 types in 2025, which is in the 10 to 20 types they initially planned for, so I guess that's fair. As for the vehicles, however, we did lose the Trident that was planned in 2023. Now, we don't know what the Trident specifically was, but considering we didn't have any vehicles in Subnautica 1, again, I'm completely fine with this, and it's not like it's gone forever. When it comes to base building though, we scored the jackpot. We went from 20 plus building parts to 50 types of base building parts, and 7 types of pre-order exclusive items, which is also a nice way to support the devs and get something back. Now, as for modes and platforms, we lost the custom game mode that was planned in 2023, but again, this is something they can easily add it back later. We went from dedicated server multiplayer to peer-to-peer multiplayer, which is honestly probably the correct call for Subnautica, and the rest stayed mostly the same, except that Xbox apparently now also gets early access. And lastly, the narrative. We went from 2 chapters with 13 to 16 hours of content to 1 chapter with 8 to 10 hours of content, which is honestly more than I expected. I didn't think we would basically have any story in the game yet, so I'm positively surprised by up to 10 hours of story content. Now, you have to keep in mind, these are early access goals. Cutting some biomes of vehicles or even biomods does not mean they are gone, it just means they'll be implemented during early access instead. This is still plenty of content for an early access game, and way more than Subnautica 1 had. And now that it has been pushed back, I think we can expect more biomes, biomods, and probably also the Trident vehicle to be available right at the start of early access again. Now on this tweet there are also plenty of people saying, see, it's clearly not ready yet. But that's just not true. Again, it's an early access game. It's not meant to be finished. I'd rather have less content at the start of early access and watch the game grow than have all the content right away and just see some polish. The person who posted these leaks also mentioned that the Trident or Leviathans were ready but were removed. Now I don't know where they got this information from, but that seems very unlikely to me. Now there is a second page to this too though. Here Krafton recommends a launch with an MVP level build, aka minimum viable product, where we get to experience the core loop at a high quality level. They also say the current version lacks polish, and again, it's an early access game. It doesn't need to be polished. Sorry, I really don't think Krafton understands the concept of early access. We had stuff like this in Subnautica 1's early access, and it was really cool. They then give a summary of what they expect the game to add before early access, because it apparently falls short of meeting the high expectations of the open world survival craft genre and the Asian market. And for the last time, it's early access. Why have high expectations for an early access game? I want to see the work in progress stuff. I want to see the open world and the funny bugs. I even wanna find some game-breaking bugs and report them to the devs. I don't want a polished product for an early access game. The polish comes last. Okay, sorry, rant over. So again, on this page we see the content that they currently have versus what they want for the early access launch. It seems like they want another biome, as well as 8 more creatures and 2 more Leviathans. They also want 6 more biomods, a mining and automation system, which is really interesting, and a farming system, which apparently isn't in yet. As for the specs, they want approximately 10 hours of core gameplay, and this one is really hard to make out, but I think it says 30 hours of sandbox gameplay, as well as an online account integration. I don't know what we could possibly need an online account integration in Subnautica for, but sure. Then for the narrative, they want 2 chapters in total. Now, we only got these 2 pages, but I think it's clear that Krafton doesn't understand how Subnautica does early access, which is probably also why they think it's not ready for early access yet. But that's just my opinion. You can let me know yours in the comments or on my Discord server if you want to have a discussion with me. But for now, thank you very much for watching, and as always, I'll see you next time. Goodbye!